I am going to be getting us started by reviewing our minutes from the last annual meeting. My name is Diana Clark. I am the Benefits Manager at Promega Corporation and also the current board chair for the Alliance Board of Directors, and I'm honored to be continuing in that role today. Our first order of business being approving those minutes. Hopefully you had an opportunity to preview those prior to the meeting today. You can also find a copy of the meeting minutes in the folder in the table in front of you if you'd like to catch yourself up on those. What I would like to ask for is if I have a motion to approve the minutes at this time. Okay, thank you. That's Jim Beyer with our motion to approve. Is there a second? Thank you, Kyle. It's Kyle Reading with our second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you so much for helping us with that first piece of business. Now that the minutes are approved, I'd like to take a moment to welcome all the new employer members at the Alliance. We're thrilled to continue to be expanding and attracting new members who want the combination of control, choice, and cost savings offered by self-funding through the Alliance. Since our last fiscal year ended on May 31st, 2023, we've added 50 new members. And we're already off to a great start for fiscal 24. Since June 1st, we've added another 24 new members. We're excited to see that all of these new members and look forward to working with all of you directly. Next, I'd like to talk about our most recent board election. The Alliance uses electronic voting to make it convenient for cooperative members to cast their vote for our board of directors. At this time, I'm pleased to announce that Dan Ludwig, Director of Benefits and Safety at Brakebush Brothers, has been re-elected to a 3-year term. Congratulations, Dan. Next, I'd like to share that Pam Peterson, the Senior Vice President and Chief People Officer at UW Credit Union, has been elected to a 3-year term. And last but not least, Moira Kloss, Chief People Officer at WPS Health Solutions, has been elected to fill a vacant seat through 2025. Congratulations, Moira. Congratulations and thank you to each of you for your service to the Alliance. Next, I would like to recognize Craig Parsons, CEO at Palmer Johnson Enterprises, for his service to the cooperative for the last 5 years. Craig's term on the board concludes at the end of this year. Next, I would like to take this time to recognize and introduce the Board of Directors for 2023. So I am Diana Clark, the Board Chair and Benefits Manager of Human Resources at Promega. We also have with us Jake Nolan, is our Vice Chair and Vice President of Human Resources at Rice Lake Weighing Systems. Jake, if you would please stand up. Jim Beyer, our Chief Financial Officer at Fall River Group. Jim, I already found you. There you are. Richard Campbell, Head of Human Resources at ABS Global. I haven't seen Richard yet, so he might not be here. Okay. Dan Ludwig, Director of Benefits and Safety at Brakebush Brothers. Brad Ohm, Vice President of Shared Services at Gordon Flesh Company. Craig Parson, Chief Executive Officer at Palmer Johnson Enterprises. Kyle Reading, President of Spuncast. And Mike Tomzik, Vice President, Finance and Fleet Operations at Colby & Colby Millwork Company. On behalf of the membership at the Alliance, thank you all for your willingness to share your time and talent as board members. I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to work with each of you and have learned so much from each one of you. I'd now like to introduce Doug Benzine, Vice President of Finance and Operations at the Alliance and Board Treasurer. He will provide a report on the financials for the past fiscal year. It's your walking music. It's your walking music. You gotta move it, Doug.
Very nice.
This is so smooth.
Nice. Thank you, Diane.
Thanks.
Well, good morning, everyone. We ordered up this weather especially for you today. I think that would be our last 70-degree day probably here in Wisconsin. But again, welcome and a good morning. I'm going to be providing an overview of the Alliance finances. And I know how much we all enjoy the numbers side of it, so I'll try and provide some good clarity on that for you. But first of all, I would like to remind everybody of what our organizational structure is. We are a cooperative. Everybody has a different understanding of what cooperative is, but for us, we are member-owned. Our members, you own us as an organization. For comparisons, other organizations that have similar structures, credit unions, agricultural cooperatives, rural health cooperatives, or rural electrical cooperatives. Also from a retail, it'd be like Ace Hardware's stores and like REI. Those are all cooperative organizations. A couple of the unique perspectives of cooperatives. The board of directors is selected by the membership, from the membership. So they are providing direct input into our leadership in our organization. The second more unique perspective of the cooperatives is how profits are distributed to the membership. On an annual basis, the board of directors decides at what and how much of our profits are distributed back to you, the members. For example, in 2023, we distributed back, it's called patronage. Hopefully you've all received your patronage checks, or will be receiving them soon. We distributed back $1.8 million. It is the largest patronage payout that the Alliance has ever made. And that means we had a good year. I'll preface the financials. Bottom line, we are not beholden to shareholders. We are not beholden to a single owner. We're not trying to drive share price. We are here to focus on you, the member, and your employees. Okay, financials. Let's talk about an income statement. We all like income statements. From a revenue and expense perspective, as you can see, the trend's been very positive over the years, last 10 years. It flattened out a little bit over the COVID time, but since COVID, we've seen a very nice growth. That obviously coincides with the growth of our organization. In 2023, our revenue came in about $12.6 million. Our expenses were about $9.8 million. And our profit or net income came in at about $2.8 million. Majority of our revenue comes from our access fees and our retainage fees that we charge. Balance sheet. Again, if you look at the balance sheet, a trend very positive. It shows that we are a very strong organization. You will see in 2023, our assets rose to about $12.8 million, but also you'll see our equity continues to grow. Our equity makes up about $9.5 million. We are in a very solid, a very strong financial position, thanks to all of you. What's driving this growth? It is the members. In 2023, our membership grew about 8.5%. We're up over 340 member organizations, which is fantastic. Number of lives is 115,000 plus. As you can imagine, we are becoming more and more of a player in the market. We have more and more leverage as we negotiate contracts. Again, we are a growing entity. The Wisconsin market is identifying us as that growing entity. And again, thank you again for all of your participation with that. Finally, this is a tool that we use to measure what is paid to providers by the members, our members and their employees. This is what we're tracking. We use this to track on how prices are moving. For example, this year, in 2023, the prices are the cost in the PMPM, it's called per member per month cost, went up about 7.9%. 3.3% of that number came from pricing. And in 2023, we had a couple of our large hospital systems renegotiate contracts. And that played a lot into that price increase. 4.6% of the increase came from utilization. So this allows us to monitor and see how we are impacting all of you. With that, is there any questions? And I can't see anything out there anyways here. All right, well, thank you very much. And Cheryl, you're next.
Thanks, Doug. For my portion of our meeting this morning, I want to share some comments on results and also share some opportunities that we see on the horizon and what we plan to do to capitalize on those. For those of you who have been members of the Alliance for a while, you'll recognize this diagram. It's our 4 core drivers. These are basically the sources of leverage that we believe as employers working together we have to exercise to improve healthcare. And the most fundamental of those is transparency of information. The Alliance has been working to improve the transparency of price and quality information since we opened our doors in 1990. We know that we can't manage what we can't measure, and so the Alliance has been working on this front for years. Most recently, we have been working with other employers from across the state to support the passage of the Know Your Hospital price bill, which you'll be hearing more about this afternoon in the breakout session on health policy issues that are impacting employers. The second area that we focus on is provider network design, essentially who's in the network and how they're positioned in the network. And healthcare is changing. There are new models of care delivery that do a great job and cost less. And we are working hard to bring those new models of care delivery into the network so that it's easier for you to promote these to your employees. I want to call out a few who have joined us here today. They include Dedicated Family Care, Pivotal Health, and Viaro Health on the primary care side. And in terms of specialty care, we're proud to welcome MH Imaging as well as Smart Scan and Smart Infusion. These are high quality, accessible, patient-centered models of care that also cost less. So a great deal for us. The third area that we focus on is payment reform. And we're continuing our efforts to realign how care is paid for to reward better value care, not just more stuff. And we're working on some pretty groundbreaking work to focus also on the total cost of care, not just the unit price. More to come on that front in the future. Frankly, transparency, provider network design, and payment reform are all important, but together are not enough to achieve the goal we're after, which is to shift market share to doctors and hospitals that do a good job and cost less. That essentially is making the free market work in healthcare. And that's where benefit plan design comes in. It's our job collectively to see to it that the clinicians and the hospitals that are doing well and that cost less see market rewards for the efforts that they're making and get more business. And plan design plays a critical role in helping that happen. I'm happy to say that today, 75% of Alliance members who have 80 or more employees are using plan design in some form or fashion to create financial incentives to go where care is good and costs are lower. That is great news, and it's an important start. But it's only a start. And as you'll see in a moment, we've got more work to do. I'm going to share some data on how we're doing in shifting market share to high value, or what we are referring to as preferred value providers, in a moment. I want to remind you of Smarter Care Advisor, which is a tool that we released in 2021 that is freely available on the Alliance website, no password needed. And through Smarter Care Advisor, you can find an array of providers. Providers are sorted providers in our network are sorted according to whether they are high, medium, or low cost for 23 shoppable procedures. These are things like MRIs and CT scans, hip and knee replacements, and colonoscopies. Common shoppable things where we have the opportunity to influence where care goes. The chart that you're looking at now shows you where we're actually buying care. This is a depiction of utilization across all Alliance members by high, medium, and low-priced providers for these shoppable procedures. The green section of the graph represents low-priced providers, yellow medium, and red high-priced providers. And what you can tell by looking over the 8 quarters that are represented on this slide is that we're not really moving the needle in terms of increasing utilization of low-priced providers. Now, we didn't imagine that 100% of our utilization would be going to lower-priced providers, but we expected to see a gradual increase, and we're not seeing that yet. And as a result, we are in essence leaving money on the table. This slide shows you really missed savings opportunities. The blue portion, I gotta get my glasses for this. The blue portion of the slide, the light blue portion of the slide depicts care for gastroenterology. The pink portion of the slide depicts care for musculoskeletal care, and the dark blue portion of the slide depicts care for radiology. So you can see the missed savings opportunities, and in essence, it averages out to be about $3 million in total per month that we're missing out on by not having care shift to preferred value providers. And I want you to know that capturing these savings does not involve putting employees on a plane or asking them to drive long distances. When we did this analysis, we found that for 75% of patients, the low-priced provider, a preferred value provider, was within 20 miles of where they actually got care. So this is a relatively easy lift to be able to capture significant savings. We have some theories about why it is that it's taking longer than we'd like for care to shift to preferred value providers. We're operating on 3 of them right now. The first is that we believe consumers may not be aware of better options. A second is that they may not feel comfortable or be confident in how to shop for care. And the third, quite frankly, is that big delivery systems are highly motivated to refer care within their 4 walls. I want to talk about what we're doing to address each of those theories. In terms of the challenge of low awareness by consumers, we're creating tools, some of which exist today, more will be out in the future, to help you educate your employees about the opportunities and the benefits of shopping for care. A second area that we're focusing on is the fact that we think consumers may not feel confident or comfortable shopping for care. And we intend to address this by making a big investment in care navigation. We are developing a care navigation resource that consumers can use that will be technology driven. So a patient can go on this app and find important answers to questions like, where are preferred value providers close to me for X, for whatever care it is that I need? And what will I pay? What will come out of my pocket for this care? And what will my employer pay? We want them to have the total picture of the price. And finally, am I eligible for any kind of incentive by using a preferred value provider? Those are some of the questions that we envision this technology to answer for consumers. We also intend to have an 800 line staffed by real people so that if consumers have questions or they just prefer to call a number for help, we have that covered as well. This will be a multi-year endeavor. This is no light lift to create, but we intend to start a pilot yet in 2024 with several members of the Alliance and their partner TPAs. We're committed to making this work. We think this just getting to better value providers is a great idea. It needs to be simpler than it is today. The third theory that we have about why it's taking too long to move care to better value providers is that delivery systems are highly incented to keep care within their four walls. Quite frankly, what we refer to as benefit plan steerage, they refer to as leakage, because there's a possibility that if they aren't the best price and high quality, they stand to lose business. And primary care providers who are employed by big delivery systems aren't just encouraged to keep care within those four walls. They're often punished if they don't. Those are strong headwinds that we need to fight in order to do our job of being a market that recognizes and rewards better value care. So what are we doing about this? Well, first and foremost, we are growing our network of independent primary care providers who are unencumbered by the constraints of being in a big system and can use data that we provide to make referrals to preferred value providers when the care can't be provided within those primary care practices. We're sharing information with them as we are with the on-site clinics that you run. And so that's one strategy that we think can be effective. We also, once we have care navigation up and running, we'll be promoting that broadly to Alliance members so that consumers have a resource to help them get to better value care, even if they are initially directed in a different way. So let's talk about what's at stake if we aren't successful in picking up the pace to shift market share to preferred value providers. The first is your employees will continue to pay more than they need to. And that will take away from important investments for themselves and their families in arguably other things that are important, like education. Your company will continue to pay more, which reduces your ability to invest in other benefits or create jobs. And the preferred value providers who have stepped up to the plate to innovate and offer better pricing won't succeed, and some may go out of business. And lastly, the unacceptable status quo of unaffordable health care will persist. But we can do something about this. I mean, that's the beauty of the Alliance. Together, we can create a market that recognizes and rewards better value care. That's our job. So we're asking you today to do what you can to promote the use of providers that do a good job and cost less. Use the communication tools that we have, and you'll need to do this repeatedly. We understand once at a once and done communication that happens at open enrollment won't be effective. This needs to be ongoing. We want to help with that. So let us know, give us feedback on the tools we currently have, give us feedback to create new tools. We want to help you with this task. We also know the importance of incentives for consumers. And as I mentioned earlier, many of you are already doing a great job to create those incentives. It's also something consumers need to know more about. Share your ideas and your feedback. We know many of you are knee-deep in this task of trying to promote the use of preferred value providers. Tell us how it's working. Where are you successful, and where do you have challenges? And what is it that we can do to help push you over the hump? And finally, we're interested in your feedback and input on our care navigation resource. We're really excited about this. We're optimistic and hopeful for what this can mean. We would benefit by hearing your feedback early and often on how to shape this in a way that will best meet your needs. Thank you all so much for being here. That concludes the annual meeting portion of our session, and enjoy the rest of the morning. We'll see you later.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You guys were all talking. You missed my dancing up the stage. No. Oh, well, come on. All right. Well, welcome to our breakout session, Beyond the Basics. Take your health benefits to the next level. I am Melina Cambizzi. I think most of you know me. All of you know me. Senior Vice President of Strategic Marketing and Business Development here at the Alliance. Next 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to have an amazing discussion with 3 incredible partners of the Alliance for many years. What we're going to try to do, or start doing, is demystify the power of data-driven decision-making, learn how making health a priority can literally change the game for your organization's success, and also highlight the art of effective education and communication. We heard our CEO talking a lot about education and communication. These 3 folks are very much involved with our clients on this. This is key to our success, to help employees decipher their benefits and understand how to use them to drive better outcomes. I would like to introduce them, and I'll do that relatively fast. I have a lot to say about all 3 of my colleagues here. Sarah Hames, in the middle, is a distinguished principal of NBS Advisors with 30 years of employee benefits experience, and she is a guiding light for businesses. She's been a guiding light in my life for the past 6 years as well. Sarah seeks to identify innovative, non-traditional healthcare strategies, vendors, disruptors, emerging locally but also nationally, with her goal being to help interested employers transform traditional healthcare into sustainable delivery models and benefit both employers and their employees and their families. And we're excited to delve more in her insights and expertise. At the far end, Mr. Drew Leatherberry, founder and CEO president of Avergent. I'm not going to speak a lot about Drew right now because we will hear much, much more about him and his team later on. I think it's still a secret, a surprise. Drew and his team guide organizations through the health plan strategy. I was humbled to be at a conference with Drew not too long ago, a few months ago, a national conference where about 10 of your employers were actually awarded with national awards because of the change that they're making in the healthcare industry, led by Drew and his team. The core of what the team has built is called collaborative care. I hear patient stories almost, weekly about how successful collaborative care, and I see Tim here at the audience as well, how successful collaborative care has been to help members access the best care at the specialty level. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about what does best care mean. I know that Drew and his team love turning customer plans from liabilities into assets. Last but not least, Mr. Taylor Orton from Cottingham and Butler, closer to me here. And what an interesting story and what an interesting relationship we've had for 4 years that we've known each other. Not very often that somebody sits across a small-town farmer with a background in computer science and analytics and actuarial sciences. And to try to talk about solving healthcare problems in America. And he's going to help us to show us, that number one, people like him exist. And number two, you're going to hear a little bit of the banter, the discussions, the arguments, the solutions we've been talking about for quite some time. So he thought he was going to get a degree in technology and then go to a multi-million-dollar job and retire early, young. Instead, he stumbled upon the world of insurance over about a decade ago, and he quickly found a curiosity and passion for solving the mystery of our healthcare system. And so, as he tells us, began the late nights of studying national data, deep diving into employer claims and programs, and eventually curating new solutions from the ground up to solve the problems that keep showing up time over time. So Taylor from Cottingham & Butler is excited to be here and share his passion for solutions and some of what he has learned with us today. So welcome to you all. We're very excited. I'm going to get immediately into the questions. By the way, at our break, the team is going to be outside at the Grand Terrace for one-on-one discussions if you have more questions. And if we have a little bit of time, we'll answer your questions as well. Although noteworthy that these questions have come from you all because we're asking you for questions ahead of time. So this session is for employers who already self-fund and they want to take their benefit design and their benefits to the next level. So for each one of you, and I'm going to start with Drew, what are the 3 things employers must do to get the most out of their plans?
Yeah, I mean, you started with a really easy question, Melina. Thank you. If we think about it in terms of 3 simple, effective things, I think the first thing is just understanding that plan members are partners in the process of controlling the cost of healthcare and also making sure that the plan performs well. So communicating to plan members as if they were partners and not just participants in a plan, but partners. And I think that takes that looks like having that type of tone in how you communicate and educate. Second thing I would say is when we look at the true costs that blow up plans in the self-funded arena, it's obvious that they happen within complex care episodes, and controlling the specialty care pipeline is really, really important. And that leads to my third thing, which would be helping members not just focus on getting to the right facilities, but also getting to the right physicians. Having the data, as we're going to talk about this morning, that helps us to assess who fits a specific patient, and getting them to the right physician has proven time and again to be really the key mechanism to controlling not just the cost of the episode of care, but making sure that we get the best outcome.
Thank you. Sarah, your thoughts?
Well, Drew and I were talking earlier because we do have a lot of conversations and we just kind of throw out the word ditto. So everything you said, Drew, is absolutely correct. I think, though, we could add that it has to start with independent primary care. And I'm just thrilled to see that, especially in Wisconsin, we're seeing a lot more, whether you call them DPCs, direct primary care, or the employer-sponsored clinic. To me, there's, that all blends together, but it's independent primary care, getting people to the right provider or getting them to, a panel of navigators who can help them get there is really key. Because if you just let your people go into the system, they gotcha. Just like Cheryl said before, doctors are incentivized to, run up that bill. And I think the providers, the doctors, the nurses, and those wonderful people who are in the care systems do a really great job, but there are conflicts of interest with what they have to do, and the independents will make sure that people are getting to the right place for the right services, et cetera.
And I think the last few years, we're seeing so many incredible physicians sort of fed up. I'm going to put you, Ken, on the spot almost. Sort of fed up with the systems, right? And starting their own businesses. I know Cheryl pointed out dedicated family care. Dr. Wendy Molaska, I believe, is here with us. She's at the very end. My own physician, I love her to death. One of our best DPCs in Madison. But also Ken and his wife, who may be in a different session, Dr. Sabina Singh from Anovia, from, I'm going to say Wausau, but really Stevens Point, Green Bay, multiple locations. We're so lucky to now in Wisconsin have you all, and thank you for that. I'm sorry I took away from your time.
You're fine.
But maybe your perspective on that first question as well?
Well, one of my 3 was Drew's, which I think getting people engaged and involved at the patient level, which are your participants, their spouses, their kids, and making sure they really understand their role in the equation, that this isn't just something that the employer does at the beginning of the year to people, but with people. The other two I would probably add goes to somewhat of what Sarah said, which is be thoughtful about who your partners are. So to me, it's really about alignment of the big core partners you work with, your third-party administrator, your PBM, who's doing the actual care themselves. So I'm a big fan of independent primary care as well. And it's, are their interests aligned with yours? And this also goes to your consultant, right? And I work with a lady that I started, she's been in the business 35 years. And what she used to tell me is, one rule of thumb with finding a partner is follow the money. How do they get paid? And if they get paid for a reason that has a conflict with you, you probably don't want to work with them. That's kind of a throw them out rule. There's some other things I think we're going to talk about later, but who those core partners are to help you on the paying process, because I think a great TPA, a great network that partners with the TPA, a great PBM, and great independent care will change the world. And if you have a great consultant with that to help you shape it. But those three roles to me are really important. And then the second one I'd add is whatever strategy you're doing, many of you have best practices. You all are doing something. The Alliance does a great job of educating on great best practices. If I see a flaw in the employer world today, and honestly even the consultant world, it's people move on before they've actually made sure something's actually working. I use site of care as a great example, right? Like it's a great initiative, move people, to lower cost, higher quality providers. You throw in an advocacy solution, you have a care navigator, and you throw it in place and you expect it to work. And at the end of year one, if you actually had metrics, you would probably see that the opportunity is still 95% uncaptured. Yet you move on to the next thing because that's what the industry teaches us to do. Is there's a new shiny bell, or a whistle or something like that. And I say, maybe before you move on, measurement of what you've already done to make sure it's working before you actually move forward. We're not going to solve healthcare in a year. And I say, sometimes it's kind of like myself at home. If I put too many shirts in my closet, I don't know what to wear. Right? And so same kind of concept of make sure you're actually getting value of the stuff you're already doing.
I love this measurement and data, and I'm going to move us to data. Okay. And I'm going to start with you this time. Taylor, how can we use data to identify trends, anticipate utilization patterns, but at the end of the day, make these necessary adjustments? Because yes, we're looking at a long-term strategy here. What adjustments do we need to make to maximize cost savings and plan efficiencies?
Sure. Two quick thoughts on that side. So one is, in order to review data, you need to have your data. And so you need to have a partner going back to that will actually give you all the information you need. And I'm a huge believer in consolidating your information in one place. It's dirt cheap to do so. There's a lot of great providers in the space, I think. So we use Cedargate Technologies, which is Deerwalk, Springbuck's a system, Artemis is a system. They're all less than $1 PEPM. You spend way more on other things. And I say data consolidation of all your eligibility, your medical, your pharmacy, even your dental, your wellness, your clinic, all in one place. Because to me, you can't look at data unless it's actually sitting in front of you. And most of the reports you will ever get from any independent vendor doesn't have all of it, and it's ugly. And so I'm get your data to be a little bit cuter so you can look at it and have it all in one place, I think, first and foremost. And then second's a little weird. So I'm a real numbers nerd, but I actually think looking at 100 pages of analytic reports is the most useless point of time that you could ever have. And I go back to best practices are best practices in this business, right? You can get a laundry list of all the things you should be doing to help manage healthcare. I say, rather than using data to find new things, oh my God, I've never looked at a report and be I have a new solution now. Instead, it was, I have 30 best practices. Which one should I do first? And actually using the data to help you prioritize best practice for your organization. Because one organization might have a specialty drug issue right now. They're all great things to do, but I might want to focus on specialty drugs, or I might be an organization that has a lot of cancer happening right now. Where do I focus my attention first on strategy? Use the data to help you prioritize.
Awesome. Sarah, I know you're big into data as well. All these three consultants are, so yeah.
Well, and being, a lone ranger, as I call it, the only person in my company. I don't have access to a lot of resources, like a firm like, Drew or Taylor have. So when I think about data or anything I always like to start at the end of the story. What am I going to try to accomplish that I think I can actually achieve, and then work backwards to see how do we get this accomplished. So, for example, we do a lot with my clients with, steerage, and we have our, where we want to steer, and when we're looking at the reports, we see, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people who aren't following where we want them to go. We call them missed opportunities. So we go back and look at those and then try to figure out, okay, why did we miss this? Why did this person choose to go someplace else, et cetera? And how do we close that gap in the future, going forward? So we rely again on our independent, providers, in our clinic or at the DPC or whatever to help us do that. And in one instance, we've got the DPC's nurses are going out on the floor, talking to people, either when they know that they're going to have a condition to help them, coach them on, where they can get the care, et cetera, and actually guide them there. Or in some cases to say, hey, how's that, how are you doing from that knee surgery that you chose to have at, Aurora or, someplace else? And did you know that you could have had a free bundle, and a guarantee on your surgery, et cetera? So I like to start at the back end of the story and then, work our way up.
Thank you. And you folks at Virgin look at data very differently. So you may want to help us a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things that data allows us to do is not just identify the problem, but say how can we fix the problem? Where does the inefficiency exist inside of an episode of care? What we've used it for in two specific examples is to identify when tests are being done or ordered by the wrong physician, and I would say the wrong physician level. We've spotted things like imaging, where we all can sit here and say, hey, an MRI test done at an independent facility is going to cost us a lot less than having that same MRI done inside of a hospital. But we've actually found through the data that MRIs are being ordered by NPs where they don't necessarily need to be ordered by NPs within that specific episode of care, because what we really needed to do was we needed to get the patient to the right specialist. And then if the test needed to be ordered, it could be ordered at that level. So again, getting people to the right physician first is something that we've found. And then using that data point to then go back and work with our utilization management partners and make sure that we have the right protocols so that we can intercept those opportunities and then work collaboratively with the patients to do the right thing. Secondarily, I would say we know that surgical avoidance is probably our best tool to be able to save money. And what we've found is that when we look at the entire episode of care, not just line item services, we've been able to spot opportunities where we can look at alternative therapy measures and then put those types of measures in place to work with patients proactively so that they understand they have alternative options outside of surgery. By doing so, we've seen plans save not just thousands, but literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you have to design the plan, of course, to work with that.
Right, it's a great segue. What do you recommend to your employers to do to save not only for themselves, but also for their employees and their families?
So I think incentive and plan design is obviously really key. And if you think about it in terms of what has happened in the industry over the last 20 plus years, you've seen just exploding deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses. And we try to use benefit design to steer people, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it's gotten to the point now where the costs are so obnoxious to do the wrong thing that any level of member share really doesn't even make sense. Deductibles, copays, coinsurance. So from our perspective, we like to say, let's just make free the right option when we get people to the right physician and facility. So I think benefit design is a huge thing. And then I would also say that collaboration amongst the physician world is clearly the best thing. When we get physicians talking to each other around a patient case, we find that the solutions are actually quite simple and easy. It's that lack of collaboration that actually prevents the patient from getting specifically what they need.
Fantastic. Sarah, can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, Drew talked about benefit design, but your employers do a very, very specific benefit design, which I have copied for our own company. And for whoever wants to listen to me, I'm a 58-year-old, I was ready to say 55, 58-year-old woman that this year have spent zero on my healthcare because of my benefit design. That maybe you want to elaborate a little more.
Sure. So most of my clients, not all of them, but most of them have adopted copays only, no deductibles or coinsurance, because, copays are like we think as a consumer, right? Do I want to spend $500 to go get that MRI at the provider that my doctor is, the system doctor is pointing me to? Or can I save that $500 by going to, one that my collaborative care panel or my navigators are recommending, et cetera, which would be free.
Right.
And, it's just a different way of thinking.
Right.
It takes a little getting used to. People don't quite understand it perhaps in the beginning, but once they catch on, it has been very, very, very effective.
Very
and
effective,
people
yes.
really like that free care. Where we get into trouble sometimes is actually with the employers, who make the decisions that, an HSA is the greatest thing ever because I can put all this money away. Well, when you look at your workforce that is earning typically, the average I think is about $50,000 a year.
Right.
And they're living paycheck to paycheck and are afraid of paying a $1,000 bill, HSA doesn't do them, much good. So this type of plan has worked really well. And generally, like Melina, when people, spend nothing on their health care because they're getting everything free by making those right choices, they have the money they can put away in their tax-saving vehicles anyway.
I do have an amazing doctor who keeps me and my husband very healthy. But in addition to that, we are making the right choices. It's preliminary, so we're just started looking at our own data. But we believe we're seeing people on the copay plan versus the HSA plan actually paying less PMPM as well. We want to look at this longitudinally. One of the reasons why we're actually keeping the HSA for our own health plan, just because we want to see how this trends over time. So it's just remarkable to see. And so far, big difference between people on the copay plan versus members on the HSA plan. You have more to say about HSAs though, maybe? Or other benefit design strategies.
I actually would echo Sarah's. I'm a big believer in the copay design, and I actually even think about it even on a more elementary level of assume you had no steerage. I even talk to employers that have no steerage in their plan, and I think the average consumer, right, likes a price on everything. Most people buy from Amazon every day. I come home and I have 2 packages every day, it always seems, right? But people like it because it's easy to use and easy to understand, and I actually think even if you had no steerage, if you have a benefit design, I always use the example, right? It's classic of urgent care ER. And you say, hey, urgent care is, subject to deductible and coinsurance, and so is emergency room. We all know that emergency room's $1,000 or more, and urgent care actually is roughly the same price as a PCP visit of a couple $100. Nobody has context to what that is until you put price tags on it and you say, hey, we're going to give away urgent care for free and the ER visit's $500, which then the employer's like, oh my God, are we going to do that? And I'm like, you're already doing that, you just don't see it. But being able to give people clarity on the range, I'm a big fan of that in the copays. As for the HSAs, it's interesting. I think I've never seen a longitudinal study on HSAs, but what I do know about HSAs, they're very cheap for a reason. If you ever study pharmacy by itself, pharmacy scripts per person will drop on average from 12 per person per year to 7 if you move them to an HSA. People buy less stuff. And now whether or not that's good or bad, I think it's the TBD of everything, right? Is like the argument is, hey, care will pick up, and you're going to pay bigger dollars later. The problem is most employers don't offer exclusive HSA plans, so it's really hard to study. But I look at employers and I say some employers want to offer it for their higher income workforce that want to buy it, or they want something really cheap because they need something really cheap to offer. I'm with Sarah though, like if you truly are trying to take care of people, just know that the HSA deters them from using it. And pharmacy is a great indicator of plan usage.
Thank you. So we talked a lot today, already this morning, about engaging employees in their health. And I think you all know that we've been talking about this for years, right? This is not, but it is so important because again, when we share with Cheryl our data and we see such low utilization of things that are a no-brainer in my mind, right? Independent primary care that's free, MRIs, imaging, things that are the easy things for employers to save money, but also for employees. What innovative strategies can all these folks here use with their employees in their own health? And I will start with you, Sarah, if you don't mind.
Well, I think Cheryl echoed or took away a lot of the thunder. She just hit those nails right on the head. Communication is going to be the hardest thing you can do. It is the most essential thing that you need to do. And as Cheryl said, the one and done at open enrollment doesn't cut it. You know, even giving the benefit guides, no matter how, good they are, clean, simple, understandable, people forget about them, don't use them. So you need to really get to your employees, the best way they want to hear. I work with a lot of school districts, and what we heard from, our teachers is, if you give me more than a sentence, I'm not going to read it. I don't have time to read it. So, give it to me in little sound bites. I have a client who does a weekly bulletin, and we have one little corner for benefits. And we started this thing called, do this, not that. If you've ever read the book about, eating, eat this, not that. This is, do this, not that. And we give them those little tips on, how they can best utilize healthcare. You have to get to the member at the point that they want to talk, though. And so you have to make it easy. And so for most of my clients, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, call this one number, and they will guide you to the right place. If you're calling, 5-Star Health at Prairie States, if they'll talk to the member there, they'll get them to collaborative care, they'll get them to the pharmacy, they'll help them with their issue, etc. They don't leave them stranded. And I think that is extremely important. But again, and it's not just what you do, as Taylor pointed out, it's are you doing it well? So you have to keep asking your members, are they getting the point? Does this help them, etc.
You did a quiz, I think, for open enrollment recently, right?
Yeah, well, actually, it was 6-7 years ago.
Oh, was it really?
Oh
my gosh!
So we implemented a new plan with steerage, and we, got rid of the network, and we did some, direct contracting at the time, et cetera. And we just didn't feel people were getting it as well as we wanted them to. So they had to pass a quiz for open enrollment. It was a 10-question quiz. It was multiple choice. You could take it as often as you needed to get 70%, but the questions asked all those little intricate, things that were easy to misunderstand about the plan. And at first we got a lot of pushback, and afterwards we had a lot of people come up to us and say, wow, I learned so much from that. So I do get, pushback on it. I have one client who goes, absolutely not. But think about, little things like that can really help.
Drew?
Yeah, I echo a lot of what these two have said, and I think part of engaging plan members is actually getting them to the right primary care physician relationship, and I want to double click on that because I think a lot of times we are in a position where we're educating however often we are, and we're missing members when they need to access care, when their primary care physician is really the start point of being a good consumer in healthcare. So if we can incentivize the right relationship at the primary care level, we can also then start to look at what progress can be made within specific risk populations in our organization. And we talk a lot about chronic disease. If you think about type 2 diabetes and the ability to reverse that condition, it's very possible when you work with the right partners. And if you have the right primary care physician who's focused on creating relationship and reversing disease, that's where you can gain a lot of ground. So you incentivize the right relationship, you get that physician the time that they need to engage the patient in focusing proactively on their health, and you will see results. So I think that's a great strategy.
And we've been asked this question as we were preparing for this panel by several of our employers. How do you help educate employees? How do you help educate their families, right? So your thoughts as well, Taylor?
Yes, I think to me, it's threefold. So you have three options when you want people to do something. And I think the employer world, you can educate, you can incentivize, or you can force. I think it's kind of, there are some employers that get to wit's end on the education front, and so you say, hey, I'm going to make some mechanisms a little bit harder. Like, you have to do some things because we're in this together. But on the education front, one thing, two thoughts on that front. One, I always tell my customers, they always ask me to come to, a lot of the time they'll ask an advisor, your consultant, hey, can you come do an open enrollment meeting for me? And I say, you don't want me to, because I'm less important to your organization than you are. I need you at the leadership level to be invested in educating your people, not me. And I get it's easier for me to do it, but I always use the example in our own company. Every quarter we get together as an organization and we spend an hour as an entire company of 1,200 people going over topics. I give the example of when I was 21 years old, I never put any money in a 401k, never did. And our CEO got up, took 15 minutes, and he put a number on the screen. I'll never forget, it was 52%. And it said, and what it stood for was the percent of people that put enough money in to get the 401k match. I was one of the 48% that didn't. And it's funny because I do this business now, right? Within 2 weeks of him spending 15 minutes, it went to 77%. And that's what I give it as an anecdotal example of leadership communication. I also say, if you're going to put steerage in a plan, your leaders better be, walking the walk, right? I have a company now that's talking about it, and the CFO is like, I'm going to still go to Mayo.
Right.
And I'm like, that ain't going to work because people are going to know that, right? And so there's leadership buy-in and ownership of the communication. The other thing that we're doing on education is we actually do a lot of digital communications now, and we track them through, there's a tracking company called Bitly. So we use QR codes, any link, anything you send digitally, you can track. So we're trying to track, what do people open? What do people read? Fun fact, last year, the most engaged resource that we send out, postcards.
What?
To Sarah's point, people don't like long, lengthy stuff. We live in a society, a 10-second society, and postcards were the most engaged. Now, part of me is we work within a lot of blue-collar industry. I say maybe the spouse is making better choices at home. But also part of it is the simplicity, and I think sometimes we overcomplicate.
Postcards in the mail or
postcards
online?
in the mail.
In the mail.
In the mail. We put a QR code on them.
Wow.
And the QR code generally links to, it could be a 30-second video from the CEO or something like that. And so we're finding, what do people open? Because if we're sending out something that nobody's opening, what are we doing? That's on the education. And then I think on the incentive front, or maybe I'd say we've talked a lot about incentive, but even one unique thing we're doing right now is we have some clients that are at wit's end, and we say, hey, we're going to force some advocacy and care navigation. In order, we're going to send, every time you want a prior auth before it's approved, you have to talk to one of our care navigators. It's another way that we're going about it.
I saw some smiles as you were talking, because I'm not gonna put anybody on the spot. I can see some of you, not all of you, but we do have employers in the audience where their CEO or their CFO would say, no, I'm gonna go to Mayo until there is no more Mayo in the network. So yeah, definitely. And so if you want to talk to our guests after, please do. But definitely we have a lot of employers that are doing the right things, right? So how do you help your employers choose their partners? In this new fiduciary, it's not new. I know, we all know that it's not new. But people, our employers, the market thinks this fiduciary responsibility is new, which is not. But in this more sensitized fiduciary environment we live in, how do you help your employers choose the right partners? And then we'll talk a little bit about PBMs, because we got a lot of PBM questions. I'm going to start with you.
So first question I always ask, I go back to my most important three things, is I say, how do they get paid? Are their interests aligned
Follow
with
the
mine?
money.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
What are their, and then how are they, how are they paid? Who's paying them? And are they paid for results? And that leads to my second question, kind of going back to my number one of measurement, is I always ask, if I meet a new TPA, I say, how do you measure success? Like, what are the core metrics that when you come and present and you have 5 minutes to my executive team to show that you have success, what are they? And you'd be surprised at the number of organizations that don't have a great answer to that, or it's really fluffy. And so it kind of leads into the PBM question when we get there. But if they don't have a really easy, strong opinion of a metric that matters, that they measure, I don't want to work with them because there's no way they're going to tell me if things are working. And I think that's a big one for me. And then the second, I'm big on innovation. Is I say, what have you done in the last 2 years to help your clients be better? Just really simple stuff, but I want to make sure that they're tracking how well they're doing and they can understand and they know it. They're constantly innovating. And then I think the last one's service in today's world. Service with a lot of companies in the world really skimp on service. And so I want to meet the people I'm going to work with every day, and I want to know who I'm going to go to when it's not working.
What's that one number you ask your employers to always look at?
So in again, the pharmacy world, they're all a little bit different, but take pharmacy, right? I'm big on allowed, post-rebate allowed and post-rebate paid per member per month.
Per member per month. I was hoping you started taking me through pharmacy. I'm like, I hope he's going to get me to the per member per month. Because, and we've had these discussions, all four of us, right? Discounts off of bill charges. My stuff is better than your stuff. But at the end of the day, what's that PMPM, right? And how do we compare with that PMPM? So thank you. I think everybody heard us. It's my new mantra. Drew is looking at me, but it's my new mantra. What's your PMPM? Which we can't get from the competition when we ask and we get compared to the competition, we can't get it. Let me go back to the question though. So Drew, sorry for the tangent here, but yeah.
I think following along those same lines of thoughts, pulling off a successful self-funded plan requires collaborative efforts across organizations. And so you need partners to be able to demonstrate how they've done that in the past. How have you worked with other partners to successfully operate a plan vision? And we look at what our partners don't, they have good sales pitches, but what have you actually demonstrated to run a plan on a day-to-day basis? I think that gets to the point of the member experience, which has to be at the forefront of everything that we do. At the end of the day, we're stacking self-funding and self-funded plans up against the United Healthcare and Anthems of the world. And while those are options that employers can look at, ultimately, if they want to stay in the game with self-funding and do it in the ways that we're talking about today, they have to deliver a good member experience. So a lot of times it's asking, what do you do, regardless of your position in operating a plan, that focuses on delivering a better member experience?
I love it. Sarah?
We're all creative thinkers, and we are constantly looking for what can we do next, what can we do different, and thinking of this is what I want to accomplish, how do I get there? And when I'm choosing partners for my clients, I need their flexibility, I need their ingenuity, and I need them and my client to be ready to fail. It's okay to fail if you're trying something new, because that you're going to learn a whole lot more from your failures than you are your successes, but let's do this together. And when we hit that roadblock, what do we do about it? If you've ever been at a carnival, a fireman's picnic, and you've driven the bumper cars, well, what happens when you hit the wall? The bumper car. If you do nothing at all, you stay stuck to the wall. So you have to do something. And that's what, when we're looking at the data, is it working? Is it not working? When it's not working, okay, what are we going to do to fix it? Et cetera. And I need my partners to dance with me on those.
Mm-hmm. So a couple things that you guys said. So meet the members where they need to be met, the member experience, the employer experience. I just want to move to PBMs, and I'm awestruck. So I'm not going to claim that I know a lot about the PBM world, because I've been in these the medical side of the field for just about my entire life, career. But recently, the Alliance, we were able to go to a fully self-funded chassis. We were level funded before. We're now large enough so we can choose our TPA, we can choose our pharmacy, we can choose our partners. We are, of course, our TPA is WPS, our stop-loss carrier. WPS, if I have WPS folks in here, I believe I do, powered by Oxient, so that's their self-funded chassis. Stop-loss with WPS, we're able to pick our own PBM vendor. And so we are moving to our sister coalition, NCRX. Their quote was amazing, but what has been more amazing to me is this employer experience. We don't have a lot of people that wear these benefit hats in our company, so I'm part of the implementation team. And every week we meet and they go through everything. How will prior authorization be done? What is your new formulary? So that is an amazing experience for me. I've never experienced it before. So I do want to talk a little bit about PBMs and how do you assess your PBM? You know, here's the sort of maybe naive view of an employer, but how do you as consultants assess the PBM as, you know, the best solution for your clients? And Sarah, I know we don't have a lot of time left. I'm getting the 5-minute, but you've done an RX assessment recently, so maybe I can start with you.
Well, I partnered with somebody who really led it, so I don't want to take credit for that work. But yeah, we looked at, you know, 4 we thought were very unique. But first I want to start with just a very short story about a different employer who 3 years ago went from a fairly conventional PBM. I wasn't working with them at the time. It was a PBM within a health plan, so maybe a little bit less traditional, I should say, than most. And we slashed their costs by about 30%. And members paid a whole lot less with the new plan. Here we are about 2 years later, and we're looking at yet another PBM, and they're going to slash their costs by another 20%.
Right.
There is a lot to look at in a PBM, and I'm not going to go into detail, but what gets to me now, what I really focus on now, is something called comparative effectiveness. And it's really looking at the FDA, when they bring in a new drug, it doesn't have to be any better than any other drug that's out there. It can be the same effectiveness.
Right.
It could be 2% more effective and 100% more expensive.
Right.
And you don't know this stuff. So choose that partner who can do that for you and say, instead of building formularies around rebates, you know, to try to identify what is really the best drug, you know, at the right price.
Drew, and I know we have just a couple minutes left, but Drew?
It's in the terms of the contract. The right PBMs, and a lot of PBMs are out there talking about being transparent and pass through. The reality is the PBMs that are at the top of the list in terms of what they're able to deliver with results like Sarah had indicated, they're pharmacist-led, number one. And number two, they're willing to derive their revenue only from administrative service fees.
Right.
And they will be completely transparent and obligate themselves to that inside of a contract.
I will give you the last word.
Ooh. I get one word?
Yeah, no, well,
right.
a couple.
I think I would echo both of what both Drew and Sarah said, but I would add, I'm a big fan of post-rebate allowed and post-rebate paid.
Yes.
The other thing I ask a lot of PBMs is, I ask for all of your major specialty and high-cost meds, I want your approval rate.
Right.
What % of the time do you approve the medication? So back to Sarah's point,
Right.
you know, I use, like, in today's world, what's your biosimilar strategy? Your Humira approval rate should dramatically drop if you're pharmacist-led, clinically driven, and you're going after effectiveness. Most people don't know the FDA is majority, the money that goes to the FDA is majority fed by manufacturers. And so the approval process is completely screwed up already. And so having that pharmacist-led, and what's your approval rate by drug? And I asked it across your book of business. And you would be shell-shocked at the difference between organizations that are rebate-driven and organizations that are pharmacist-driven, and that metric would show you that. And so would the post-rebate paid.
Questions that you all may have? Although all of these questions came from you all, but comments from the audience or questions? Yes. Sorry, I didn't see you, Ken.
No, that's right.
Yep.
I agree with everything that's been said. One of the things that I think is also effective it's when you can put an RN in a workplace, that really starts to help connect the dots for people because probably your HR people are going to feel uncomfortable sometimes talking about health, and you don't have to have an RN there every day, but having a dedicated health professional on site creates familiarity, and then when familiarity happens, then they can start talking to somebody about health and get them into the right channel. So that's just something else that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, thank you. And I saw Philip Blair was sitting there from Gambro Johnson before with you. He's left us, he said some other, but that's what he's done and very successfully, right? Yes, so question in the back? And I was told not to be in front of the screen, so sorry, I apologize. Yes, hello.
I don't normally have to wait for a microphone because I have a pretty loud voice, but it's a little hoarse today, so thank you.
Yes.
So, healthcare provider here,
Yes.
and former/recovering employee of a large health system, and I'm here today out of interest simply in seeing this entire ecosystem that's built up around self-funding healthcare and what everybody, providers, hospitals, insurance companies, employers are doing to kind of lower healthcare costs. But I guess my question is, what can independent/high-value providers do better to and for employer groups or I'm still learning the acronyms, I guess, TPAs and networks and whatnot. What can we as high-value healthcare providers, so I'm orthopedic surgeon, practice of 12 surgeons that I'm in charge of, what can we do to help grease the skids, for example, as it relates to benefit design and steerage and so on and so forth?
Is this Dr. Jason Sansoni there?
Oh my, yes.
Yes,
I'm
so
blushing
identify your I was talking about you yesterday to one of our groups. So yes, 12 orthopedic surgeons
Yep.
that left a big system. We're not going to name which, but everybody knows.
Yeah.
Yes, so answer to Dr.
If you don't,
Sansoni.
just check the State Journal. It's all in there too.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
start. I mean,
yeah.
at first, thank you. Make your presence known to people like us because we want to, we want to steer our people to you. I mean, that's exactly what we're looking for is that, high quality, fair cost. I won't even necessarily say low cost that we can depend upon, for our members to make them feel comfortable that they're getting what I think is probably better care than they're going to get from a lot of health systems.
And I guess the question is, at what point along and forgive me because this comes out of, I know how to replace shoulders really well. I don't know how to navigate insurance all that much. So at what point along this kind of, I guess, value chain or what have you is the best spot to actually communicate these things? Is it directly to the employer? Is it with consultants such as yourself? What's the easiest thing, again, as we talk about ease of communication and having folks make sense of it, right?
So I got a little nod. How much time do we have? Love. I think it's all of the above, right? I don't think it's one or the other. Taylor?
So I think about this. So at Cotting & Butler, we own some sister companies that I think are in the wholesale business. So you're trying to distribute to employers, sometimes through brokers, sometimes through TPAs, sometimes through, it's the same model. I think there's much more success, to Sarah's point, coming to the broker channel, like to good advice, like who are the good advisors, but also I would say to the WPS Augsians of the world. How do you broadcast? Because there's only so many of you, right? You guys are providers. You aren't trying to be sales folks all the time. And so how do you arm yourself at scale? And you have to go through large distribution channels. I think the challenge is you getting the list of who are the people that are consultants that are pro-independent providers and who are the TPAs and networks that are pro-independent provider and band together. That's kind of where I would start. And then I think there's also some national networks of independent providers that I would affiliate myself with. So I think about like Hint Connect is a new emerging opportunity that's, as I think about a lot of employers being, multi-site, a lot of them are worried about, hey, my Madison site has this option, but my North Carolina site doesn't. And so there's starting to be some new networks of independent providers nationally to help employers navigate a new network, if you will.
Drew, any thoughts? I know I've been given the eye here that we're done, but I want to continue. I want to talk about this for another 2 hours. So,
All right,
yeah.
so just a short 20-minute expose on how to answer your question. What you're doing right now is the best first step. Understand your role inside of the ecosystem. I think what we see a lot is providers want to add value, but they see themselves through the lens of what I can do to save you money or provide better quality without understanding that it takes a village. What you do is going to be excellent inside of your lane, but that's not going to address 100% of a population's risk. And so you have to understand your relative value to a health plan that has to think about the entire risk inside of a population. And then I would say there isn't, to Taylor's point, there isn't one silver bullet distribution model. You have to kind of find, where do I need to go to get in front of employers, and how do I get in front of employers the best? So start there, stay humble, and don't ever give up. I mean, I think it's the relentless nature of all the people in this room that is ultimately going to move the market forward.
And it takes time, right? I
Yes.
mean, it takes time. But we're here to help you, Dr. Sansoni. So thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you all. This is what we had time for. Help me say thank you to our panel. And we can continue the conversation outside. Thank you all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. As Jennifer said, I'm Cheryl DeMars. I'm the president and CEO of the Alliance, and we're thrilled to have so many of you here today in person for our Fall Symposium and annual meeting. We'll start with our Healthcare Transformation Award ceremony, where it will be our great pleasure to present this year's award recipients. We'll take a short break after that and then welcome Ford Coles, our keynote speaker. I've heard Ford several times before, and you will not want to miss his remarks on the future of healthcare. But let's start with the Health Transformation Award. And I want to give you a little bit of background on this award. We created this award in 2015 Actually, the Alliance Board established the award as a way to recognize and lift up individuals and organizations who are making a positive difference in healthcare. And we choose people and organizations that align with our mission of controlling costs, improving quality, and engaging individuals in their health. Changing healthcare is not easy, and this year's award recipients are tenacious leaders who are making a real difference. Brad Olm will be presenting the Health Transformation Awards this year. Brad is the Vice President of Shared Services at Gordon Flesch, and Brad also previously served as the Chair of our Alliance Board. Brad?
Thank you, Cheryl. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to present these awards to two outstanding recipients who are reshaping healthcare. Our first award recipient is Cynthia Fisher, has done incredible work on national level to increase price transparency and make healthcare more affordable. Cynthia is the founder of PatientRightsAdvocate.org, a nonprofit, nonpartisan advocacy organization for individuals and employers seeking to reduce the cost of healthcare through price transparency and competition. PatientRightsAdvocate.org's mission is to arm healthcare consumers with real prices that enable them to shop for the best quality of care at the lowest possible price. Cynthia believes what we've always believed, that price-empowered consumers will cause providers to compete with lower prices, improve quality, and apply free market value-based decision-making in healthcare. Please direct your attention to the screen as we learn more about Cynthia in her own words.
I had been a CEO and founder of a medical service that from the very beginning, 32 years ago, was both price and quality transparent. 7 years ago, had 3 people come into my life in the same month that didn't come to me just to find access to healthcare to solve a significant problem. Instead, they came in seek of financial assistance. Each one of them had very good jobs, as well as health insurance, and yet they faced financial devastating ruin from medical bills they never expected they'd have to pay. All of us as American workers and employers are purchasers of health coverage or insurance. And yet, we've been blind to no prices. We've been blindsided by outrageously overcharged medical bills. In no other sector do we not know prices or have to pay with a blank check. Only healthcare, without price transparency, without the ability to lower our cost of care and get better quality of care. Our American healthcare system is doing egregious harm to the American businesses, our public sector, and to the American worker and their families. So I went to Washington. This is the moment in time where I know philanthropically where I needed to focus and spend my time and build an A-team. And we found 4 existing laws that had just been sitting on the shelf collecting dust, giving us all the rights to know all the prices in healthcare before we get care. Those were big wins for the American people. Since January 1st, 2021, we have the right to have all hospitals present all of their actual prices and negotiated rates by every insurance carrier and every health plan, as well as the discounted cash prices. We have thousands of patients that come into us with their stories, and these are hardworking people with jobs with coverage that have been financially ruined. It is the individual patients and the harm that they are experiencing from our healthcare system that's putting them and their families into financial ruin. That keeps us motivated to keep fighting the fight. It is a huge honor to receive this award and recognition from the Alliance. I have great respect for the organization and the members of the organization who are seeking to lower the cost of healthcare and provide the best care they can for all of their members' covered lives.
The members of the Alliance Cooperative, our employees, and their families are fortunate to have a leader like Cynthia on our side fighting for us. We're so proud of the work that she's already done and can't wait to see what she achieves next. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Ms. Cynthia Fisher to accept her Healthcare Transformation Award.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Cheryl, and this entire organization, the Alliance, for really leading the way recognizably to lower the costs for all of your member lives as American workers. It is a true honor to be a recipient of this great award. This is my first, and it's all transparent. I love it. So thank you so much, because I wake up every day fighting the fight for you. And your employees to be able to get the best quality of health care in our country at the best possible prices. And what you are doing as an organization is really leading the way, and congratulations for last week's piece in Modern Healthcare. Now that is the American Hospital Association's publication, and it was for the first time recognizing the important role of the employers at really looking at access to these prices and costs, and to be able to change the game to have much lower costs for the American worker. And let's be real. It is the American worker who pays for all of healthcare, right? I mean, we pay out of our coverage cost, out of foregone wages, which could otherwise be in wages. And we also pay from what is otherwise take-home pay for co-pays or our deductible plans. And on top of that, we pay out of our taxes for every state, local government, and federal government, and Medicare and Medicaid, through our taxes for coverage for others through government programs. And right now, last week, we did a report with Reagan economics economist, Dr. Art Laffer, that the recent Organization of an Economic Developed Countries, all of those on our scale of being a developed country, OECD, looked at the comparative pricing for healthcare and the life expectancy. And the most recent findings is our life expectancy has rapidly declined in the past couple of years by 2 years down. And before that, it came down 2 years. So we are paying over 2 times any other developed country price for care, and we're dying 4 years earlier than the average. That's a crisis. And unfortunately, as long as hospitals and insurance companies keep prices in the dark, they can charge whatever they want. As long as you, as employers, and us as purchasers of care and coverage do not have access to our receipts of payment to know exactly what we're being charged, then they can charge whatever they want. And in the shadows, overcharges, errors, fraud, improper payments happen. And so the revolutionaries of this American revolution of healthcare, to take it all back, are the American employers. And it is each one of you playing this moment of time to demand prices. Prices are the catalyst of this revolution. We can't do anything to affect change unless we run it by the numbers. And the truth is in the numbers. And Wisconsin is leading the way. And I'm going to tell you, the next time I'm back here, I want to see that green bar coming way up that Cheryl showed us this morning of more people getting better care at a lower cost. But let me tell you why they're leading the way. When the Trump administration enacted what was done in the Obama administration, a law that was sitting on the shelf through the Affordable Care Act, our rights to know all prices, and making the hospitals and the insurance companies post all of those prices online, and in the Consolidated Appropriations Act at the same time, making sure you as employers have the right to your claims data, and that the insurers and third parties can't make you sign gag orders to not disclose them. and that you get for the first time your broker's fees. This is huge. This was a huge win, and it's going to take all of us to demand our rights to keep these laws in play. Actual prices matter. We all know estimates don't work. But let me tell you why we're seeing winning battles in Wisconsin. When we look at all the states, sadly, after nearly 2.5 years, in our July report, only 36% of the country's hospitals are fully complying posting the pricing files. But that's beginning to create a market. And what's happening is the woman in this video who had a $74,000 hysterectomy charge that the insurer denied care, when she looked at that hospital pricing file after they put a lien on her home, and the file became transparent, she was able to see the insurance carrier did cover, and all in it would have been $8,000. So by coming to us, we were able to show them the pricing file, the whole amount was wiped clean, and the lien was released off of her home. So price transparency is working. And right here in this state, a woman from Somerset, Wisconsin, Suzette, a farmer, after being slammed and crushed with a $12,000 out-of-network bill from a heart condition that her husband had, decided to start shopping. And she found she could get an MRI in this state by driving 45 minutes from her home and getting it for $490 versus paying over $7,000 at the hospital that's nearby her home. She started doing this within her whole family and found she could get her mammogram for $200 versus paying over $700. We're seeing the winning formulas here in Wisconsin. And when you look at the Wisconsin hospital numbers, you're nearly at 50% of your hospitals are being price transparent. And in fact, we gave the University of Wisconsin a Price Transparency Champion Award because they have among the best files in the country. So if the rest of Wisconsin follows the lead that University of Wisconsin did from the very first time these rules came into effect, that's a winning formula for all of you because you can have price certainty. And then you can shop. And then all of you can make sure that you get your claims data and you do not have overcharges comparative to those prices. So it's going to take all of us. And I know there's a bill on the table right now in the Senate, Bill 328, to simply do what Washington already requires of the hospitals, is post your prices and let everyone have access to these prices to be protected from overcharges and to be able to shop and benefit from competition. That bill gives teeth in it for the state to fine the hospitals $10,000 a day if they are not complying. It may be a de minimis fine compared to somebody who's been overcharged by $10,000. But the reality is that's how we will make transparency real, because price transparency ushers in quality and outcome transparency, because all of us want to simply know what are we going to get and what's it going to cost. So I thank you for this wonderful award. I thank you for the role you play. We have a one-pager on the back table for supporting the Wisconsin law, and 23 other states in 18 months have laws to enforce the federal rules because they're fed up that this administration is not enforcing the law. The Biden administration can enforce every hospital up to $2 million for not showing their price. Every day, your family members and you and I cannot get a price from a hospital, we're harmed. We are harmed from our freedom of choice and freedom of competition. So I ask you to join the fight, and you're welcome to come join us in Washington anytime. I'd love any of you to testify. And I'll just share one last thing, is there's a school district, Rice Lakes School District, is that correct? They had a 27% increase in their premium to go up to over $5 million, and they were fed up. And they went to self-insured. They preempted with great primary care, and within the next year, they lowered what they were paying for coverage to only $2.5 million. That's huge, and they've kept it around that range, 2.5 to 3, over this time. Those millions of dollars have allowed them to add teachers that they are now have the best student to teacher ratio in the state. That's how price transparency, that's how demanding that you have access to the numbers and you're in control of procurement of healthcare. And I would beg every one of you to set up a procurement model just like you do supply chain or anything else and run healthcare by the numbers and measure your successes. It's going to take all of us to win this war, and every day is a battle, but it's worth fighting so that we can live longer lives. And if we can just bring that number down to what the average developed country pays for healthcare, then all of us can not only compete locally, but we can compete as businesses on the global scale and not be terrifically handicapped or pushed down by our workers' healthcare costs. And we can keep the jobs within our local state and locality rather than pushing them to foreign countries. So this is a great win for all of us. It's a take back for our country. And to me, as you know, there's nothing more important than price transparency. So I hope you can help us with this battle day by day and save money and celebrate each one of those victories. Thank you for your leadership.
Our next award recipient is from Green Bay. Drew Leatherberry and his team are making tremendous impact in healthcare in that region, and it's nothing short of extraordinary. Drew is the president and principal advisor of Evergent. The Alliance Board of Directors chose Drew to receive our Healthcare Transformation Award this year because of incredible work he's done to find innovative health benefit solutions for his clients. In 2009, Drew co-founded a benefit brokerage firm and co-developed a consumer advocacy service model that produced significant healthcare savings for employers and employees. His passion to guide employers to diverge from the status quo led him to found Evergent in 2019. And like Cynthia, Drew is incredibly focused on trying to help individual patients avoid catastrophic financial hardship of receiving health care. Please direct your attention to the screen as we learn more about Drew and what he's doing to change the direction of healthcare here in Wisconsin.
So Evergent was born several years ago. Over the last 20 years, we've seen increasingly high deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses. Medical bankruptcies are the leading cause of bankruptcy. These statistics and more really caused me to take a look in the mirror and say, can I continue to do things the same way, getting such a terrible result? Unfortunately, what gets lost in the way that our industry looks at the core problem is that we're focused on not the patient. When you actually hear the stories of what healthcare costs have done to people, that people have had to declare bankruptcy because of a healthcare event that should never happen in a country like ours, but it has. So Evergent was really born out of the market necessity. In order to deliver better results in the market, we really have to challenge the status quo. Employers, they run a healthcare business and they have not run their healthcare business well. It's a huge expense, yet they don't have the data, the information, the tools, the resources to manage that sector of their business. What the employer needs to know is not just how the tools and the pieces come together, but ultimately how organizations like Evergent and our plan partners, how we're going to help them manage the risk that sits inside of their population from a health perspective. In healthcare, the majority of patients do not have the tools to be a consumer. Healthcare is not something that you consume like anything else. The message to the plan member is relatively simple. If we can give you the clinical tools and resources that you need to make the decisions that are going to get you the best possible care outcome, and we're going to remove the financial barrier, those high deductibles, those hefty out-of-pocket expenses, we can remove that for you. Would that help you be a consumer? The majority of the employers that we serve now deliver plans that don't have deductibles anymore, that we've seen not only insurance premiums not rise by double digits, but in some cases we've seen them decrease by double digits. And we've seen people's lives saved by just simply getting them the right diagnosis and treatment plan. Our mission is first and foremost to educate without any strings attached. And then ultimately that spirit of partnership, that education that you've gained, and that courage that you're going to show is ultimately what makes you the hero in restoring the American dream by fixing the healthcare system. To be recognized in this way with as many employers as are part of the Alliance, as many entities and organizations and people that are involved with the Alliance is a very humbling thing. And I can't say enough about the Alliance recognizing that. It means an incredible amount. And honestly, what I hope for the most is that this is just one more springboard in the market getting behind what transformative health plans can ultimately do for the plan member.
Drew, you're certainly making a difference for a significant market in central Wisconsin, and we're so thankful for the work you and your team do. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Drew Leatherberry and the entire Virgin team to the stage to receive their award.
Yeah, they didn't know they were going to get called on stage, so please embarrass them. I just want to take a few minutes and acknowledge the fact that we, at Avergent, we would not be able to be doing the things that we're doing if it were not for an organization like the Alliance and for all the work, the hard work that the Alliance does to advocate within the market. This recognition is absolutely humbling, and I sat across the table several years ago from an industry colleague, and I talked about the direction that I personally wanted to head in with employer health plans. For me, it was a time to diverge from the status quo. Exploding premiums, deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses, the lack of transparency, and what mattered the most to me was the fact that it felt like patients were sheep wandering in the wilderness without appropriate guidance to get them to the right care. In not so many words, that colleague looked across the table at me and he said, the problem of fixing healthcare is way too big for you. Fighting it is going to actually ruin your reputation. I'm happy to stand here today, just a few short years later, receiving this award. Humbled to know that what we've done is build a reputation on transforming plans. Had someone told me we'd be serving thousands of members, delivering average plan cost savings of 20% or more over a year, I just genuinely wouldn't have believed them. I also would not have believed the fact that through this team behind me, we've been able to catch early diagnoses of cancer. We've been able to work with plan partners in reversing chronic disease. We've been able to put together plan designs that help people get upstream of surgical intervention, get them alternative therapies, and genuinely do the things that industry colleague told me just simply are not possible. He's not here, so haha. I have to start by saying thank you to my 4 beautiful children, because if it weren't for them, I probably would not have had the courage to say, I'm going to venture out and start Avergent and see what comes of it. So to Josiah, Serena, Ezra, Micah, you're the light of my life and the ultimate reason I can't look in the mirror and go along with the status quo anymore. Ultimately, we're trying to save healthcare for our generation, but even more so for their generation. I wouldn't also be here if I didn't stand in the shadow of some giants who have mentored me, challenged my assumptions, coached me to be the best version of myself, and encouraged me to make a play. Among others, I owe a debt of gratitude to Kurt Voss, Tim Sherrill, Mark Kumacek, and the one and only Tim Olenichek, who stands behind me. I couldn't reach here without the courageous employers who say enough is enough, who are actually crazy enough to get behind our team and follow. I'm blessed to have met and now served dozens of organizations across the region. And really, what's inspiring is how much these employers care and how much you care for your people. If it weren't for that, you would continue to accept the status quo. So thank you for trusting and believing in Emergent and for doing what's right for your people. I'd be remiss if I didn't also thank all of the like-minded partner organizations, some of whom are here today. Without you, without the collaborative spirit, without the effort, we wouldn't be able to serve our mutual customers. So to all of our plan partners, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. And finally, this award, it just doesn't belong to me, which is why this team stands behind me. It's a testament to assembling a passionate, mission-minded team of rock stars. These folks get up every day and they are relentlessly obsessed with better. They stand in the face of all the challenges that our industry, healthcare, health insurance throws, and they continue to get up and dust off their skinned knees and move towards better. These are the people that really deserve this award and this accolade. The results are theirs and not mine. I want to just take a moment and give a round of applause to this team, please. Lastly, as I was thinking about standing up here and offering just a bit of encouragement to you, one of my favorite quotes from Gandhi came to mind, and he was talking about revolutionaries and movements. He said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. Friends and fellow healthcare revolutionaries, we're past being ignored. We're past being laughed at. The fight is here, and so are the wins. And there's no turning back from here. Thank you.
What a fun start to the afternoon. These are really remarkable stories, and I want to just say again, congratulations, Drew and Cynthia. Thank you, Brad, for the introductions, and let's give them another round of applause. So at this point, I'd like to take just a moment to thank our platinum sponsors, National Cooperative RX and Delta Dental, as well as our gold sponsor, MH Imaging, who you heard me mention this morning when I was talking about our preferred value providers. We so appreciate your partnership in helping us host this event.